I'm Lisa March, president and founder of Partner in Publishing. Welcome to EdTech Elevated, a PIP-powered podcast where we'll be discussing the latest trends and groundbreaking ideas, as well as inspiring stories that are shaping the future of educational technology. Join us as we explore the EdTech landscape, dive deep into conversations that are transforming the face of education. Get ready to elevate your understanding of how technology is driving change in education, right here on EdTech Elevated. For today's episode, I'd like to introduce you to your host, Dr. Mike Moore, Senior Project Manager at Partner in Publishing and Affiliate Research Assistant Professor at the University of New Hampshire. Mike is a seasoned expert with a wealth of knowledge and a knack for uncovering new ideas and driving meaningful discussions. With nearly 2 decades in higher education, course materials, and academic research, Mike brings a unique perspective and engaging style to all of his conversations. Without further ado, Mike, take it away.
Welcome to EdTech Elevated. I'm your host, Mike Moore, and today I'm joined by Dr. Jonathan Gyurko, president and co-founder of ACUE, Association of College and University Educators, and author of Publicization, How Public and Private Interests Can Reinvent Education for the Common Good. We're on site here in Minneapolis, Minnesota at the second annual National Higher Education Teaching Conference powered by ACUE. Jonathan, it is an amazing opportunity for me to sit here with you today, so thank you so much for being here.
Mike, thank you so much. I'm feeling dated that it's such an honor, so let's keep this cool and casual.
Cool and casual is good with me. Listen, your credentials are a mile long. It is easier for us to talk about the things that you haven't done than the things you have, like teaching in South Africa to helping revolutionize education in New York City. So I want to jump in with my first question. Higher education is saturated with conferences. What is NHETC and why do we need another conference to attend?
Yeah, you bet. Higher ed is a bit of an alphabet soup of different associations and organizations, and we all have our big gatherings. The simple fact of the matter, and this may sound a little harsher than it is, but professors, and that includes me, we are not taught how to teach. Full stop. Now, across the United States, 1.5 million professors trained and prepared and practicing as world-class researchers, world-class scholars, committed to their institutions through service on committees and in other ways. But when we look closely at the training that goes into a typical PhD, it doesn't include effective teaching practices. Now, that may be okay if you're a highly motivated student, you're going to do well in college no matter what. But right now, we've got millions of students in American universities and colleges, more than 15 million. But our completion rates, our graduation rates are only around 60% for first-time, full-time students pursuing a BA, and that's over 6 years, Mike, not even the 4 years that we think of. You go to college for 4 years. And at the community college level, that completion rate for the first time, those most motivated high school grads who want to get a degree, it's only about 30%. You put those two stats together, weighted for the enrollments, and we're only at about a 50% completion rate nationwide.
That's incredibly low.
It sure is. When you look at the economic projections that the economy and jobs need for well-prepared workers, when you think of the civic needs for citizens who can handle and sift through a lot of competing claims and information and misinformation. So why do we need another conference? This is the only national conference. The National Higher Education Teaching Conference is the only national gathering of faculty, administrators, leaders, policymakers, researchers, and advocates, all focusing on the issue of the quality of a college education and how to strengthen the quality of teaching and learning. I like to say this is nobody's fault, right? This is not a knock on professors, and I'm one myself. I teach at Columbia Teachers College. But it is our problem and opportunity to solve, to convene and gather and strengthen the quality of college teaching.
And is that really what the main focus of ACUE is, to help teachers or help professors become better professors, or to teach them how to be stronger in the classroom to help our students learn?
That's exactly right. Our mission is student success through quality teaching, full stop. And we're now in our 10th year, we formed almost 10 years ago through an observation that a lot of good work was happening and continues to happen to help students succeed and increase those graduation rates. Think of efforts to make college more affordable or more accessible if you're not even applying or completing your FAFSA. Although the feds have made that a little difficult this year. The whole realm of support services, which I know Partner in Publishing helps to support. Think of advising and digital nudges. But all that is outside of the classroom. And many of today's students drive to campus, park, run into class, get back into their car, and go back to family, jobs, and other responsibilities. Or they log on, experience class, and log off. From our perspective, that means class is showtime. Class is our prime opportunity to change the trajectory of a student's life. And it's higher ed's obligation, we think, to make sure that class time is of the highest quality it possibly can be. So, among friends and leaders in higher ed, we were analyzing this. It's not a huge insight once you say it out loud. And we said, well, what can we do to meaningfully strengthen the quality of teaching and learning in a way that's additive to past efforts? Because there's scholarship in the space. There are teaching centers on many campuses who do good work, but their reach has been limited. And so we set out to do a few things. First, prepare the highest quality courses for faculty in college teaching methods. Think of that, a professor becoming a student again, taking a course in the best evidence-based methods. Having that experience lead to a certification such that can influence promotion decisions, tenure decisions. If I'm a contingent adjunct employee, I get rehired. I'm at the top of the line because I hold a national certification. And have all that tied to national standards, what we call our effective practice framework, a list of 25 core teaching competencies that every professor should know and be able to do. Lastly, we've been researching the impact of those courses, the training and certification for years. Guess what? When students experience more effective teaching practices, learning deepens, persistence goes up, engagement goes up, course completion and retention goes up, and achievement gaps close by race and ethnicity. So why a conference? That work is great, but what we have realized is to truly ensure excellence in every class, it's going to take a movement. It's going to take policies and funding of a scale that is beyond the work of ACUE. And that's why this national convening to draw attention to the issues and to promote greater teaching is so important.
I have a colleague, and I know that he stole this from another colleague, and building on some of the things you just said is, generally the question in higher education is the student ready for higher education? But we rarely ask the question, is higher education ready for the student? And building on that is when a student is not successful, we say, what's wrong with the student? Instead of saying, what's wrong with their institution? And what I'm hearing you say and how you're positioning ACUE in the focus on the quality of teaching is that this is really helping us transform our institutions, where we're saying we can do better in this aspect. You can control teaching and learning. That's how we can help our students be more successful. we can't do anything right now, or ACUE could not do anything about financial aid or advising or those things. But inside the classroom, the thing that we can control and help our students be more successful, that's really what you're focused on.
Yeah, I like the way you frame that. There are lots of big societal complex issues at play, right? What does it mean to get a college degree? What does it mean to be college ready? I'm not sure that either of those questions are all that well answered or defined. But be that as it may, there is certainly one thing that is in our control as a sector, and that's to ensure that proven methods that increase engagement, persistence, deepen learning, and do it in a fair way regardless of a student's background or preparation, that those practices are present in our college classes and classes broadly, whether it's online or in person.
Boost your company's digital presence with Partner in Publishing. We leverage proven strategies to expand your reach and increase sales. Whether you're a startup or an established business, we tailor our digital marketing strategies to meet your specific needs. From search engine optimization and high conversion digital ads to organic social media and targeted email marketing, we employ essential marketing strategies to achieve your mission and deliver impactful results. Partner with us to meet and exceed your sales and marketing goals and stand out in the education sector. Learn more at partnerinpublishing.com.
And this is EdTech Elevated, so I can't let us go any further without asking you specifically, how has educational technology or technology in general played a role in your advancement of teaching and learning?
Yeah, sure. So when we did our scan and literature review of all the activity happening in this issue, in this space, much of the existing work to support professors was analog, so to speak, face-to-face workshops, conferences like this. Marvelous activities, but hard to scale. And our ability to develop and deliver high-quality online courses that professors absolutely love, that's been transformative, and that's been the difference to bringing quality practice to today over 40,000 professors on over 500 campuses.
Oh, that's incredible. And one of the things that's really interesting for me in education is, the advancement of AI. And I know that you guys just launched a new AI Quick series at ACUE. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you're supporting faculty or what it's doing for faculty in artificial intelligence?
Yeah, sure. Look, our view both on AI and everything we recommend is pragmatic in the best sense. How does this work to help us deepen learning and help students succeed? And that's our take about AI. It is a pretty nifty tool. Let's learn how to use it.
Right.
It's a tool in our hands. It's not a replacement for the hands that are creating the conditions for student learning. So our new AI series covers the fundamentals of using it to develop course design, materials, prompts, assignments. Also some of the ethical questions of how to help students manage and be savvy users of AI themselves. And then AI, like it's transforming many companies, is transforming in a very positive way how ACUE does its work. A key part of our learning design is to provide feedback to professors, and you can just imagine training AI and having AI-assisted feedback trained on tens of thousands of reflections and past feedback provided is really amping up our ability to coach and guide professors.
Excellent. I love that. And you mentioned something earlier that I want to go back to, what does it mean to be an educated American? There is a lot of talk in the last couple of years of the general public either losing faith in or not seeing the value in education. Where are you on your thinking in that? And additionally, what does it mean to be an educated American?
Well, no small questions today from Mr. Mike Moore. You know, I think that is the question that we don't ask ourselves enough. What does it mean to be a college-educated American? What does it mean to hold a high school degree? That's an answerable question, right? It takes organizing and listening and input. But I think what we find today is the answer more often than not gets answered for us, right? So think of, in the K-12 space, and even in higher ed, the power that a textbook publisher has over what it means to understand American history. And that's a big part of our understanding of what it means to be an American, as opposed to an ongoing national conversation which could be supported by tech and social media in ways undreamed of before, about our history, about what we want young people and young adults and adults to know. So rather than answering the question, Mike, what does it mean to be an educated American, I think institutions need to do more asking of the question to all the different stakeholders in their constituency. Otherwise, take the 4,000 institutions of higher ed. We've got 4,000 different answers to that question.
Right.
Let's take the easier example of preparing future workers, right?
Okay.
You go to college for lots of reasons. A top reason is for economic advancement, to get a better job. Employers have been so consistent for years as to what they really need in new, young, college-educated workers. And it's the soft skills, the ability to communicate, to think creatively, to collaborate with others, the self-regulating, self-executive functioning skills. I'm hard-pressed to find how those particular goals, and they're not the only goals of schooling, but how are those particular goals translated into a K-12 curriculum or into a college curriculum? They're sort of assumed, but not necessarily explicit. Said another way, Mike, I think the last time we ask plays well with others is in about first or second grade.
Right. So you think that we need to spend more time on those skills, or we need to be more intentional with those skills to help our students get into the workforce?
To me, it's less about the skills and more about better dialogue and communication between what parents, families, students seek in an education and the experience they're getting.
I understand. So we need to do a better job in our education understanding what the needs are. Not so much like this is what we think it is. What is actually out there that our students could potentially want or our families want?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, think of how many majors are constructed. The learning objectives are focused on understanding the knowledge and theories of the discipline. Well, that's great if you're going to go on to get a master's and a PhD in that field. But what are the cross-cutting skills and aptitudes, the writing ability, the thinking ability, the computing ability that is going to be relevant outside of that field? And I think we can be more intentional in how we bring those kinds of goals into schooling.
So what I'm hearing from you is that we really need a transformation of our current education, like how we think about educating students.
Well, sure, and I think it bears out in the data on particularly to higher ed, the declining public confidence in a college education. It's not great, and it's particularly bad when disaggregated by political affiliation. I read just today only 1 in 5 self-identified Republicans have a high confidence in a college education. That should be setting off alarm bells. How do we restore the confidence that Americans have in what we do?
Right.
Our view and the view of others and a number of higher ed leaders with whom we work is that quality is the key. Quality is the key to restoring confidence. Access is key. Affordability, sure. Support is great. But if the core experience isn't of quality, it's no wonder we're seeing the confidence decline.
Well, the question of quality, who determines the quality? Are we saying that if I don't believe the school I went to was any good, then it's poor quality? If only a handful of people are saying it's poor quality, like who determines that quality? That is the question that I'm concerned about. Like who sets that?
Sure, and who sets it today? We're in higher ed. We're very much playing a rankings game, right? A U.S. News and World Report has huge influence on the perception of quality of higher ed. Now, when you unpack that algorithm, what do you find? Selectivity is a key driver. So if I do more marketing to get more applications to drive up my selectivity figure, all of a sudden I move up in the rankings. That seems to be a perverse incentive. Spend more on marketing to be perceived as higher quality. If I spend more on research instead of teaching and learning, I'll move up in the Carnegie classifications. So right out of the bat, we've got rankings and classifications that don't necessarily get at quality. But let me take it back to the very practical work of the conference where we're at and ACUE. If nothing else, we can ensure that proven teaching methods are in more classes. And I'll paint a sort of a straw man comparison. That professor who stands at the lectern and reads a lecture that was written 30 years ago, same lecture notes. There is a place for direct instruction lecturing. It's not 50 minutes standing at a lectern reading old notes. And there are so many other proven methods to help students learn. If nothing else, we can ensure that quality metric is present.
That's a great answer. I love the way that you put that. That's answers the question. We can focus on the quality of the instruction and ensuring that is the best that it can be. And that's, we can't impact people's opinions of the education, but we can ensure that our faculty are giving the best quality instruction possible.
That's right. And it's like you said earlier, this is something that is in our control. There's a lot that's not in our control, right? The sophistication of students' K-12 preparation, right? Their objective writing ability or computing ability at the end of 12th grade. But this is something that's in our control.
Are you ready to elevate your brand and captivate your audience? At Partner in Publishing, our video marketing services are all about turning your ideas into captivating visual narratives. Whether it's a compelling promotional video, engaging social media content, or informative tutorials, we've got you covered. Our expert team works closely with you to create videos that not only look amazing, but also drive results. Don't just be seen, be remembered. Visit partnerinpublishing.com today and discover how we can help you outshine the competition.
And I'm glad that you brought K-12 in there, because I want to switch gears. I really love where we're going, but I really want to ask you this question. So your first career act was in K-12. You started, it was school in South Africa, and you moved to New York City. And then you jumped into higher education. But with the recent release of your new book, you're kind of stepping back into K-12. So can you talk to us a little bit about the meaning of the title of your book, Publicization?
Yeah. Well, Mike, what's the opposite of privatization?
Guess there really isn't a definition or a word for it.
Well, and you're spot on. I taught, as you mentioned, taught in South Africa in the amazingly exciting years right after the end of apartheid. Mandela was president. This is 95 to 98. Came back to the States to do some graduate work and literally fell into the charter school movement. Not for no ideological reasons. I didn't have this sort of faith in markets and competition and what have you. But it was interesting. It was new. But the politics around it seemed so toxic. right? Here are these schools that are going to put district schools out of business. They're going to compete their way out of business, so on and so forth. And these labels have been thrown around. This is privatization. This is privatization. Well, okay. If it's privatization, what does it mean to be public? And having spent over a decade working the K-12 fields, and then many more years thinking about this question, well, what is it that makes a school more public or more private? And if we can answer that question, we can actually start to work to strengthen public education because we've got a clear definition and clear criteria to work against. But when you paused in answering my sort of rhetorical question, that's why I wrote the book.
Right.
I think the intellectual tide that really powered privatization, markets, competition, choice, I think it's going out to sea. And we are in the still waters between two intellectual moments. And what's that new tide coming in? It needs a word, it needs language, it needs a framework to organize our policies and our writings. And that's what publicization tries to do.
So you think that, I know there's been really a movement for charter schools, but you feel like that there's going to be a swing back to a reinvigoration of public schools?
Well, the distinction I like to, or the taxonomy I like to use is charter schools and district schools, a district school operated by a local school district versus a charter, because that frees both schools up from the notion of are they public or private. And we can use the book and the criteria to say, well, how public are they? I'll give you an example of privateness from a district school. Think of attendance zones, right? If I am excluded from that school across the street because I live on this other side of the street, and that's in a different attendance zone, that exclusion doesn't feel all that public. The very notion of something that's public is it's available to everyone.
Right.
Now, there are policy mechanisms around choice and lottery and what have you, such that that student doesn't need to be excluded from that school across the street. Rather than see this as charter v. district, I think the question has to be, how do we strengthen schools' ability to be more public in service to all students? And that could include charter. It could include private schools if they are publicly purposed and operating in a public way.
So is there a test that we can use to figure out, how public or how private they are?
That sounds like a leading question, Mike, but I'll take the bait.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. The book turns to the economics literature, which has a very, very simple way of identifying what's a public good and what's a private good. And a private good can be excluded from someone else. Think of an apple. I'm going to eat this apple. I'm not going to share it with you. It is my private lunch. You are excluded from it. Something that can't be excluded, like the air we breathe, until the day that we all have to walk around with our own private oxygen tanks. But right now, Mike, the air we breathe is a public good.
Yeah.
Because it's unexcludable. Okay. We can operationalize that definition, and I've done that in the book. I call it the exclusion test. And what that test allows anybody to do, a teacher, a concerned citizen, a policymaker, is to look for where exclusion exists. And that's an opportunity to take down the exclusion, to have more participation in the decision-making or in access or what have you, to make it more public than private. Think of a very stereotypical, a very cliched image of the school that says, just leave your children at the schoolhouse door. We know what we're doing. Well, maybe you trust the teachers and educators in the school, but it's still a measure of exclusion, as opposed to schools that have more parent involvement, parent dialogue, and participation. Once you start using the exclusion test and looking for it, it's all over American schools, whether they're district or charter or private or proprietary.
Why do you think that is?
Well, part of this goes back 100 years to the professionalization and the bureaucratization of schools. So prior to the progressive movement in the early 20th century, schools were driven by the spoils system, right? Every time there was a new election, this is particularly in urban areas, one set of teachers is out, a new set of teachers are in, regardless of the quality, the experience. It was a great public job, a great government job. With the progressive movements in the early 20th century, there was an effort to professionalize schools, right? With professional administrators, you've got schools of education, starting programs for administrators. For teachers, you've got state licensure, state certification. All of that well-intentioned to strengthen the quality of education, but at the same time, taking the politics out of schooling. In fact, that's the phrase, let's get the politics out of the schools. But what I think has happened, and the historical record bears this out, is that has created exclusion with experts as the authorities in charge of schools, as opposed to having more politics in the best sense of dialogue and participation with parents, with citizens, the taxpayers who are paying for the bills of the schools.
I don't even know where to go with a lot of that.
This is so in the weeds. It's so nerdy. It is, we're nerding out on this.
It's such an important topic. And, it's a little off of EdTech Elevated, but I think what you're saying is important to be said out loud. Our schools have become political hot zones. So it's really important that we're able to have open dialogue about some of the things that you're talking about. So just to be able to be part of this conversation, right? To sit here and listen to you and to now have the opportunity to think about it. I have 2 young kids, so thinking about this stuff as they prepare for school, it's meaningful. Like, it's important. It's not just, talk.
That's right. You have a vested interest in what the state, vis-a-vis district schools or charter schools, wherever you send your children, are doing with them.
Right.
Taxpayers have a vested interest, given the annual budget levies for schools. But here's where EdTech and tech generally can be such a boon. The ability to live stream public meetings. When was the last time you or most people went to a school board meeting? It's a whole lot easier now to attend, to participate. And that's even before we get to questions like, how can we use tech to, learn what a community wants it at schools, whether that's a town or a state or a country. My goodness, if Amazon knows the next thing that I want to buy before I've even bought it, surely we can deploy these tools to help answer that question. What do we want of our schools?
I'm gonna leave it right there. This has been probably just an incredible opportunity to speak with you and to listen to you and to take in a lot of the things that you said. And I know that I'm going to think about them as I, prepare to send my kids to school. And, maybe I can be part of, some of those conversations as school board and taking some of that in. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you and to listen. And I know that we have a copy of your book waiting for me at home, so I can dig into that. So
yes, and shameless plug, Publicization, published by Teachers College Press. It is available on Amazon, Teachers College Press, and elsewhere. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and you put you really hit the nail on the head. This is about showing up, participating, having a voice, and whether it's your kids or the kids down the street. So thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of EdTech Elevated, powered by Partner in Publishing. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and informative. Don't forget to subscribe and stay connected for more insightful conversations with EdTech leaders and innovators. Until next time, follow us on social to keep up with the latest trends in the world of EdTech. I'm Lisa March, and this is EdTech Elevated.